Hey all you action figure enthusiasts out there, JC here, and today I'm back at it with another Hasbro versus Toy Biz comparison Marvel Legend video, and specifically we're going to be taking a look at the evil mutant geneticist known as Mr. Sinister. So this figure here is the new Hasbro figure that just got released, and then this is the classic older Toy Biz version. Now before we get into the actual figures themselves, let's take a look at the accessories that each one comes with. And for this particular figure, both only came with Build-A-Figure pieces. So for the new updated Hasbro figure, we get the right arm for the Wendigo. And then the Build-A-Figure piece for the classic Toy Biz figure was the Sentinel right leg. And while I haven't actually put together the Wendigo figure yet, I've got to say I feel pretty confident in saying that this original Toy Biz Sentinel Build-A-Figure is the better Build-A-Figure of the two. So as far as accessories go, I've got to give the win to Toy Biz here. Okay, now let's delve into the figures themselves, and we'll start off by taking a look at the head sculpts, first of all with the Toy Biz one. And overall, I think Toy Biz did a pretty good job. However, I've never been terribly happy with the facial expression that they gave him. It doesn't really look like Sinister to me, and you know, he's got kind of the scrunched up eyes here. So I would have liked an evil Sinister type grin, no pun intended. But otherwise, you know, I think they did a solid job. He's got the flat top hair, which is done in solid black, and he's got the sideburns, which look pretty good. And that's all sculpted. And then he's got the red diamond on his forehead, which again is sculpted on there. He's got the red eyes with the black around it. And then he's got the little black piece that comes up over his chin. Ears look good. So, you know, other than I'm just not really happy with the facial expression that they gave him, I thought Toy Biz did a pretty good job with the head sculpt on this one. Okay, now here's a look at the Hasbro figure. And with this head sculpt, again, you've got the flat top black hair, which looks good. The face is a little fatter looking on this figure than the Toy Biz one, which I kind of like. And then you've got a much brighter white color on his face. There's really no wash, so it is definitely a bright white. You've got the black around the lips, and he does have an evil Sinister grin, so I do like the facial expression a little better with this Hasbro figure over the Toy Biz one. You've got the red diamond on his forehead, and again, it's sculpted like with the Toy Biz one. You've got the red eyes. He's got eyebrows. You can make out his eyebrows more, but you don't have as much black around the eyes. But I do like the fact that they gave him the black lips, and again, you have the little black piece that comes up on his chin. You don't have the black markings on his cheekbones though, so it's just all white there. But you know, you don't really notice that much anyway. So, you know, like I said, Hasbro, they definitely gave him the evil Sinister grin, which I really like. While both companies gave us very solid looking head sculpts overall, I've got to give the win here to Hasbro, primarily just because I like the facial expression they gave on that one over the Toy Biz one. Okay, next up, let's take a look at the capes on the figures, and we'll start off with the Toy Biz one. The cape is a very important part of Mr. Sinister's look. It's almost like a Dracula type cape. So I think both companies did a fair job, but I feel like on the collar with the Toy Biz one, they oversized it a little bit too much. You know, it is supposed to be big, and sometimes, you know, even in the comics it would come off looking really big. But for the sake of the figure, I feel like, you know, they overdid the size just a little bit. I do like the, you know, you've got the red with the black wash towards the bottom, so I do like that. And then you have the red on the actual cape portion, which is done with a tassel design. So I think that looks good. And then on the back side, you've got the blue. So it is a bit darker blue on the collar, and then you've got, it's a little bit lighter blue. Now this is an old figure, so you know, the colors may have faded a little bit, but still for the most part, the collar is a little bit darker. And it's a different material. The collar is made with a harder plastic, and then you've got this rubber material for the actual cape itself. And while the collar I felt like was a little too big, the cape itself was maybe a little too small. I think they could have added some more tassel pieces. Not bad looking, but you know, again, I think it would have looked better if the collar was a little smaller and the cape itself was a little bigger. Now with the Hasbro figure, I think Hasbro got it right with the size. You'll notice that the collar, while big, is not as big as the Toy Biz one. It doesn't tower over the head, and then the cape itself is much more, you know, it encompasses the entire figure, so it is bigger. So I feel like the size dimensions with the collar and the cape on the Hasbro figure is much more accurate. You've got the red on the underside. Now you don't have any kind of wash or anything. There's no black wash, but I don't think it looks bad. And you've got the red on the cape itself as well. And then on the back side, you've got the dark blue, and the blues on the collar and the cape match up perfectly, as well as on the shoulder pads, which we'll look more closely at in a minute. You do have a little bit harder material on the collar. It's not quite as hard of a plastic as, say, like with the Toy Biz one, but it is a little bit harder than what they used with the actual cape. Now, I like with the cape that they layered it, so you've got 2 layers of tassels, so I think that looks good. Again, it makes it look bigger. And I also like how they made it so the cape kind of comes up and then out and down on the figure, so it gives you kind of that more Dracula type look for the character. So again here, while Toy Biz did a solid job with their figure, I've got to give the win to Hasbro as far as the way the capes look. Okay, now for the rest of the body, and again we'll start off with the Toy Biz figure. Toy Biz did a really good job here with the sculpting details and the paint applications on this figure. I love how the diamond on his chest looks with this kind of dark, deep, metallic type red. I also like the way the belt looks, again with that same kind of red paint with the kind of dark metallic look, and then you've got some really nice sculpting detail on the belt, so it's not just a rubber piece, it's actually part of the figure, and I think comes off looking really good. You also have the line work sculpted throughout the figure on his arm. I guess that's armor that he's wearing, so all of that looks really good. He's got the shoulder pads, and again you got some nice sculpting detail on those. Those are made with a rubber material. They match up. The blue matches up with the cape pretty good, of the shoulder pads with the cape. It's not the same color as the collar, but it does match up pretty good with the actual cape itself, at least the back side. And then again you've got some nice wash effect throughout, so it's not just a straight up blue, but you've got some black wash throughout the figure, which I think looks good. He's got sculpting detail on the legs and then with the knee-high boots, and I like how they've even included some red on the underside of the boots, so that's nice detailing. And again, just really nice sculpting work. Same with the gloves. You know, you've got the gloves that are sculpted, kind of scrunched down, and so that's an actual sculpt with the hands. Now, of course, you know, this is an older figure. It does use an older sculpt, which doesn't look quite as good as the more modern action figures. But, you know, with this particular one, you don't really have any ball joints that stick out badly or anything. So, you know, I think this is a pretty solid looking figure, even by today's standards. Now, with the Hasbro figure, again, you've got pretty nice sculpting detail with the armor portions here on the torso, the upper legs, and the arms with the line work. I also like the dark metallic blue that they used here. It definitely, when you get it in the light, looks like metal. You've got the diamond that is sculpted on there, and it is bigger on this figure than like the Toy Biz one, but it's done with just a basic red paint, so I don't think it looks as good. It doesn't look like a diamond, so I like the dark metallic red that they used on the Toy Biz version. Same with the belt. It is done with just a basic red. Now, like with many Marvel Legend figures, the belt is a separate piece and it's done with just a rubber material, but I definitely think the detailing on the Toy Biz belt is much nicer than this one. But you've got, I do like the sculpting detail on the boots. Now, you don't have the red on the top here on the underside, but I do like the sculpting detail here around the feet. You've got this added detailing. It doesn't look like it's just a straight up boot from the thigh down like the Toy Biz one. So, and I think this is more comic book accurate, so I do like that. Now, with the boots and the gloves and the shoulder pads, and the shoulder pads are done with a rubber type material, you do have just a basic dark navy color. It all matches up nicely, and it matches up nicely with the color on the outer cape, but there's really no wash effect or anything, so it's very basic. Okay, so overall, I would say that the Toy Biz figure has nicer paint applications and even some nicer sculpting detail on the shoulder pads and the belt area. And I like how the diamond looks better on the Toy Biz figure than the Hasbro figure. But I like the wider size of the character with this Hasbro figure, and of course the more modern sculpt just looks a little better in general. And I do like the dark metallic blue that they used on the armor pieces. I think that comes off looking really nice. And so while not quite as nicely detailed as far as paint applications go, I'm actually going to give the win here to Hasbro just because I think the overall figure looks a little better. Now these figures, if you count to the tops of their heads, are almost the same height, but if you count to the tops of their capes, the Toy Biz figure is taller. It comes up to about 7.5 inches, and then the Hasbro figure comes up closer to about 7.25 inches. And just for a couple comparisons, first here's a look at the two Sinister figures along with the modern Hasbro Apocalypse Build-A-Figure. And Apocalypse is taller, and I think both of these figures scale pretty well with Apocalypse. And finally, here's a look at the Jim Lee style modern Cyclops figure. Sinister always had a thing for Cyclops in the Summers family, so I wanted to give you a comparison. And just like with Apocalypse, I think both figures scale pretty well with it. Okay, and then finally we'll take a look at articulation between the two figures, starting with the Toy Biz figure. So you can turn the head to the left and to the right, and it's got a hinge joint, so he can look down about that much. Not too bad, and then he can look up about that much, again not too bad. You really don't get any head pivot with this one. And then with the arms, you can get the arm out good there, and you've got good rotation there at the shoulder, even with the shoulder pads. You've got a bicep swivel, you've got a double jointed elbow, so he can bend his elbow about that much. And then you've got rotation with, actually I take that back, you don't get rotation with the hands, you do get hinge joints, so you've got the up and down movement. And then you get finger articulation, all the fingers but the pinky are sculpted together, and then you can also move the pinky finger down. The thumb is not articulated, but it is a little disappointing you don't get rotation with the hands on this one. He does have a midsection ab crunch type joint, though he really can't crunch forward very much. That's about as forward as you can get, and he can look back a little bit there, but again not too much. You get a waist swivel. Now you can get the leg forward as long as you turn that ball joint a certain way. You can get the leg forward about that much, and then you've got a thigh swivel up high around that ball joint as well. You've got double hinged knees on this one, so he can bend his knees about that much. You get a boot cuff swivel with this one. You have hinges on the feet, so some up and down movement or back and forth movement, but you really don't have any ankle pivot with this one. You also have some toe articulation, so you can do the toes up and down, but again, you don't have any really ankle pivot with this one, which is a little disappointing. And then you have two peg holes on the bottom of the feet. Now with the Hasbro figure, you can turn the head to the left and to the right, and he has a hinge joint, so he can look down pretty good. He really can't look back because of the collar. That's about as far back as you can get the head, and then you really don't have any head pivot with this one either. With the arms, you can get the arm out good, and you've got rotation there at the shoulder, but you do want to be wary of the shoulder pads. They are a rubber material, they are flexible, so you can rotate the arm around. You've got a bicep swivel, you've got a double jointed elbow, so good bending there at the elbow. You've got rotation with the hands, and you do have hinges, so you've got up and down movement with the hands. You do not have articulated fingers, so with this one on the left hand you've got an open hand, and then the right hand is a closed fisted hand. You've got a midsection joint, so he can crunch forward pretty good, better than the Toy Biz one, and then he can look back about that much. You get a waist swivel with this one. With the legs, you can do the splits that much, and then you can get the leg forward pretty good, and you can do the leg out and back. You've got a thigh swivel that's up high there around the boot. You've got a double jointed knee, so good bending there at the knee. And then with the feet, you've got a boot cuff swivel. You've got hinges, so you've got back and forth movement, and you do get ankle pivot with this one. No toe articulation, and two peg holes on the bottom of the feet. Okay, so for articulation, I would say Hasbro definitely wins the day on this one. You get a much wider range of movement overall with the Hasbro figure over the Toy Biz one. So that's it for my comparison, and I've got to say, while the Toy Biz figure is a very solid looking figure, even by today's standards, I think it holds up quite good. I've got to give the win here to Hasbro. I really like the facial expression with the head sculpt. I like the cape. I like the bigger cape and the smaller collar, and just the overall body. I feel like the wider looking body is more comic book accurate. So if I had to pick one to display on my shelf, I would definitely go with the Hasbro one and retire the Toy Biz one to my action figure Hall of Fame. Now I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which one do you like better? Which one are you going to display on your shelf? Let me know in the comments section below. Also, feel free to like the video if you're so inclined, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and you should also hit the bell notification so you're alerted every time I upload a new video. You can also follow me on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. I have links to those in the video description as well. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.